Welcome. My name is Bill Deers, CAT NPI Sales Support Manager for the MindStar Solutions team. We want to welcome you here today. We appreciate you taking the time to join us for our webinar. A little bit of orientation before we get going here. First of all, on your screen, you'll notice some buttons at the bottom. Those buttons allow you to interact with us, either to look at various resources that we've posted for there, or to ask questions, or to invite a friend to actually come in and join the webinar. In fact, I'd like to encourage you to go ahead and use that button to ask questions live. Even though we've pre-recorded sections of this, we do have our team standing by to handle your questions throughout this webinar. So please be sure to do that. In addition, we encourage you to provide us feedback because we're always looking from our audience to provide us the topics that they find most valuable for us to go ahead and build on the next webinar. In addition to that, you'll be able to hit a on-demand version of this webinar by following the link that we sent to you in the email. And we will also be posting this on cat.com/mining webinars, where you can view this webinar as well as the previous webinars that we've done. So with some of the housekeeping done, I wanted to take this moment and basically introduce the topic. We're going to be talking about CAT MindStar Solutions for Underground Hard Rock. And today I've got two guests that are joining us. Randy Shepke, who you've seen before, who is our commercial manager for Underground. Randy?
Thank you.
How you doing?
Good, thanks.
Good. And special guest today is Alan Fennerone, who is our VP of Commercial for Mindtech. Alan, how are you?
Hi, Bill. I'm good, thanks.
Excellent. Alan, now the audience hasn't seen you before in these, so maybe you could give a little bit of background on yourself.
Sure thing. So I head up Mindtech's commercial endeavors, including helping put together the opportunity with Caterpillar to work together, primarily responsible for taking our products to market. We're based out of Perth, Western Australia, headquartered in Adelaide, South Australia. Somewhat of a global footprint, but happy to be here partaking today, Bill.
Fantastic. We appreciate you joining us on the webinar as well as for the event that we just finished. I'll talk about in just a moment. Randy, for those of you that may be new to tuning in, why don't you give a little more background on yourself?
Sure. My name is Randy Shepke. I am the commercial manager for Underground Mining Technologies based out of Peoria. My role is to manage, I guess, the commercial aspects of the underground mining technology. A lot of that involves talking to you, the customers in the industry, and making sure we translate your needs into our future products. So I appreciate your input over the years. Thank you.
Fantastic. So I want to give the audience basically a little bit of a setting, because normally we love doing these live. But this one today we've taped, and we wanted to do that because, first of all, we just gotten done doing another one of our customer events. It's been great to see these events come along, and this last one exploded as far as the number of people that have attended. And in fact, so much so we had to change the venue because the people actually doubled in size. But we find ourselves out here again at our Tanaha facility in our command center. So we want to take advantage that Alan was with us from Australia to go ahead and get on camera. But we're in this environment here now. You're going to hear we're so lucky. We got done with the customer event before this next series of storms came in. Now by this time, normally in Tucson, the weather's good. But right now, you may hear occasional thunder in the background or some hail hitting the roof. It's been a pretty wicked day as far as weather. But we're safe inside here in the command center, and we appreciate taking the time here to spend with all of you. So with that, maybe we can just chat for a moment, guys. We had a great session with the customers. Can you talk a little bit about the program from an underground perspective, what we shared with them?
Sure. So we are not the same Caterpillar we were a year ago in the underground mining space. So we made it very clear that Caterpillar is committed to underground. We once again reinforced our partnership with Mindtech, what our new product portfolio brings to the marketplace as far as safety, productivity, tracking, and automation. So we don't want to be the best kept secret in underground mining. So doing these events and getting the information out to customers or potential customers is great. And this forum was once again just spot on.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we've spent, this is the 9th one that we've done since Mine Expo 2016. In fact, we'll be doing another one coming up here in April. By the way, for those of you listening, if any of you would like to partake, you're more than welcome to go and send us an email and we can make sure that we send you out information on the next event that we have. But Alan, this was the first time for you to join us on one of these.
It was.
What was your reaction?
And my first webinar.
Yes, that too.
Yeah, I thought the event was really good. The crowd was appropriate, and I liked the way we split up into sections on underground and sections on surface to cater for all the interests of the parties. I think Randy and I did 2 sessions, repeats effectively. We had a large degree of audience interest and interaction. A lot of the questions were really good questions. We tried to talk about value and value creation rather than focus on technology, because you can talk about that all day.
Sure.
It's a lot of what we felt some of the people in the room wanted to hear were scenarios and examples of how other people have utilized this type of technology.
Absolutely. And then, of course, the other thing we did is, I think at the last one in May, we had introduced a brand new segment of our underground experience, where we show this in the command center. I know we had a chance to show that to the attendees in stages throughout the course of the time. But Alan, it was the first time you got a chance to see it. What was your reaction?
It was fantastic. It was. It's difficult to get underground and see things like that happening, and very difficult to try to recreate that. Look at it on a screen. I mean, where we are right at the moment is we're inside that center, and that whole immersive experience is phenomenal. And I guess a lot of what Mindtech as the part of the technology provision here is trying to explain the value, and using visual aids in order to do that it creates an awful lot more value. It's very much easier to then explain where some of that goodness lies, if you like.
And that immersive experience, being able to take an underground mine and spin it on its head, and address different applications and how technology can help alleviate pain points, congestion points. That's part of the whole experience, right? It says 1,000 words.
Absolutely. So basically, for those in the audience here, in the command center here, we have this immersive experience where you're able to come in and actually feel like you're going underground, and you're actually able to see the technologies applied in the various situations and how they're actually benefiting the underground mining environment.
And the noises and the imagery are fantastic. It really makes you feel like you're there.
Yeah, absolutely. A little better than watching a bunch of PowerPoints,
That's
right?
it. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Very good. So with that, let's go ahead, Randy. On that last in May, after we got done with the customer event, we then sat in here and we did the last webinar. And it was at that time that we announced the Mindtech relationship. So if you can, maybe for those people that maybe don't remember that or haven't watched that video, which by the way is attached in the resource section, can you give them a little bit of highlights? What were the key points we talked about?
Yeah, so basically we unveiled our strategy. So a couple years ago we had canvassed the industry, understanding gaps in industry offerings from the technology community on what would help resolve their problems. And they pointed out several gaps. One gap was that it's not available from one provider. They have to go by these disparate point solutions and try to integrate them into a site-wide solution that gives them data that means something, right? So we developed a strategy that essentially has 4 columns. It's interoperable automation. Customers want us to be able to equip their competitive equipment with automation. Productivity and task management. So you can't manage what you can't measure.
Sure.
So being able to provide that data right time so they can make decisions to impact the end of shift is critical. The other one is tracking and safety. So through an enabling technology that provides sub-meter tracking, we're able to deliver a lot of those features that are normally taken advantage of by surface applications with the advent of GPS, right? What can you do understanding precisely where you are with material handling, with cycle segmentation, prediction of the arrival of trucks, those types of things. And then from a safety perspective, right, that's the least common denominator. How do we alleviate some of those safety concerns in those confined underground environments? And then the 4th silo is essentially infrastructure integration. So when we look at ore passes, dust suppression on demand, lighting on demand, how do we start reducing some of the energy costs to underground mines by understanding the location of personnel and equipment and being able to turn things on and off based on those positions? So we developed this strategy, and then on the execution side, Caterpillar could have gone about it a couple ways, right? We could have tried to invent it all ourselves, but understanding the velocity of the marketplace and the evolution of technology, we weren't going to be able to do that quick enough. So just in recap, we canvassed the industry for a partner who had a proven technology, proven customer base, and they were very complementary to our current underground product portfolio. In doing that, we came across Mindtech.
Okay, so before we dig in a little bit more, can you just expand this particular partnership? How did it impact, the voice of the customer was velocity. How did it specifically impact the velocity?
So it allowed us to leapfrog directly over a lot of our competitors in this space. So what Mindtech had brought to the table was that GPS solution for underground, right? That sub-meter tracking that we could then combine with deep machine integration, automation, the assignment engine for block cave type applications. So it really rounded out our portfolio, and since it was a proven product, the only thing we had to prove is that we would work well together. Sure. And we're currently doing that validation as was announced at Autonomy in Australia. So really appreciate their help.
Excellent. So let's go ahead now that we've kind of reminded everybody about the relationship and stuff, and talk about some of the key points that we delivered and talked to the customers about this week. So kind of as a level set on the enabling technology, Alan, sure, maybe you can talk about the key items on the enabling technology.
Sure. I tend to focus a lot on this, pardon me, because it tends to be the piece that unlocks all the value. So if you consider the enabling technology to be, there's a couple of different ways to contemplate it. One is it's regular 802.11 Wi-Fi data communications that you would understand, combined with the ability to track assets at real time, in real time. And a good analogy for the mining industry to understand is surface mining, where you've got positioning provided by a GPS type of technology, and you've got data comms provided by whatever cellular or Wi-Fi or whatever the case may be. Each of those on their own is quite valuable, but when you put the two together, you unlock significant value, because you can begin to think about, predict where something's going to be and understand where things are going to be. Trying to port that technology to the underground is very, very difficult because you don't have GPS. I jokingly said to Randy earlier, how many how many surface mines do you know that have launched satellites in order to get that degree of precision tracking? Sure. We've effectively, and that's the reference Randy was making to GPS underground, we've effectively brought that. It's more accurate, but it unlocks all the same value that has been unlocked in surface. So
and that enabling technology allows us to layer several different capability sets across it for safety, productivity, assignment, and tracking and visualization. So it's kind of the foundation, and then we just start stacking building blocks on top of it.
So before we dive into those, let's talk a little bit more about the enabling, because I want to make sure everyone's clear. Like, so there are different technologies that allow you to understand where you're at underground, correct?
Sure.
Yep. So again, what's the key differences between those and what you have?
Yeah, so I think the key differentiator is this is a one-stop shop for your data communications and your tracking. And when we're talking tracking, we're talking sub-meter tracking. So when you're talking about being able to manage ore grades, draw points, things like that, the differentiation comes in the accuracy, but it also comes in the way it's packaged. Traditionally, there would be a wireless communications network deployed and a secondary layer of an RFID type positioning system, which is totally independent of anything else. So once again, it's a point solution that someone has to try to integrate to get value out of that system.
Yeah. And it's not the tracking per se, because you can track. There's pros and cons of something like an RFID solution, but it's more the combination of the two from a single vendor on a single platform product. And that on its own is all well and good. It's what you do, it's the visualization of the data that you're capturing is the real key here, because the data turned into information has value to somebody, and what we have collectively tried to do is present the right version, if you like, of that information to the right customer of the data. And that customer can be a machine operator or a control room operator, for example. We'll probably dig in a little further as we go along.
Well, I know we spoke a lot in a lot of our sessions about the data, right? Because data accuracy, right? If you don't have good data, if you don't have timely data, it's going to make you make bad decisions, poor decisions, right? So the more accurate, the more timely, the better decisions you can make, the better increases you can make to your operations, right? And that was a lot of discussion. So it sounds like your enabling technology is truly giving the miner the edge to have the most accurate data, most timely data, from which to then draw various different.
Yeah, there's ways. Sorry, Bill. There's some of the ways that we try to explain that is because a lot of the industry, a lot of industries are very caught up in big data analytics and all that. There's probably an easy way to explain that it's the data. The real-time data is the data that is presented to the customer of the data, who's then empowered to make a smarter decision or a knowledge-based decision about what they're going to do next.
Sure.
So a good example of that might be something like there's a operator in a piece of equipment, and the interaction with our system that he sees is that one of his colleagues is 2 rows up, and he should pull over to allow the haul truck to pass him by. That type of stuff.
Sure.
That's sort of the low-hanging fruit stuff, where the accumulated data that you probably won't be able to make a decision on in the moment is more like the strategic stuff. What does a good crew look like? Good crew, bad crew, plan to actual reconciling, and trying to work out the ingredients for an increase in productivity across the total mine.
Okay. Well, since we've kind of, unless Randy, you wanted to say anything else about the enabling? Okay. So since I think we've kind of established a foundation about what's different, what is with this enabling technology versus something else that's on the market, let's go ahead and start translating that into some specific solutions if we can. And maybe we can start with, all right, so how are we leveraging this enabling technology to improve safety in the underground mine, for example?
Sure. So we've talked about the enabling technology and we've talked about the full suite, but don't be fooled. We can deploy point solutions as well. So if you're simply looking for a solution for safety, we can be that. If you're looking for a solution for zonal RFID looking type tracking, we can do that. But the value we're going to bring is integrating all that for the customer and removing the pain of all of those point solutions. But when we talk about a point solution, from a building blocks perspective on the safety scale, a lot of customers will start with a peer-to-peer proximity awareness solution because it is deployed independent of any infrastructure. So you don't need wireless, you don't need communications or anything underground to deploy this solution and start seeing value from it. And the beauty of it is the hardware, the enabling technology you have on the machine is scalable when you want to deploy your infrastructure and go into production management. Also, from a proximity awareness perspective, once you have this infrastructure in place, another safety aspect is proximity awareness. And Alan had alluded to the fact that you can see your colleague around the corner. Basically, this is allowing you to have that situational awareness within the cab of your machine to other assets and personnel around you up on a scalable type mine view.
Sure.
So we've got proximity detection, proximity awareness, and it scales into a collision avoidance solution as well.
Okay, excellent. So quite not only a broad breadth of safety solutions, but also a very accurate degree of solutions there.
And that's the beauty of it. Is
And
the
it
accuracy.
talks to also, I think, the problem that the miner is trying to solve. So if their single largest priorities to prevent interaction between their HVs and LVs and people, which is a worthy priority, we can address that. Where we're very different, and we compete with there are other vendors that do that sort of stuff. Where we begin to add a significant amount of value is what Randy talked about, that you start with the detection. If you're then trying to articulate value and allocate tasks, and you want to start getting into what people understand to be like fleet management, for example, we simply build out infrastructure. We change nothing on the vehicle. We put infrastructure, and then we enable more software to allow for scheduling and task allocation and stuff like that. So a lot of the areas where a client would have to go to 5 or 6 or 7 vendors and 5 or 6 support contracts, and a forced integration comes out of a box with a journey that we can map out for the client right off the bat.
Okay. So let's go ahead. You started to give some examples on the kind of the productivity side where this could go. Can maybe dig in a little bit more on that? on the productivity?
Sure. So Alan had talked about, understanding where people are, using the enabling technology to give position and accurate location for muster points and, emergency evacuation, those types of things. So now that we know where they are, we'd like to also know what they're doing. And we'd like to know that real time. So we have the ability to bridge the gap between planning and execution. So, the mine planner will put a lot of work into developing this, electronic shift schedule, simply to be written down on a piece of paper, to be given to an operator, to be lost, or coffee spilt on it, or something, and that plan is often outdated, a couple hours into shift, right? Because we everything is unexpected and it happens. Delays happen. Exactly. So how can we effectively take that electronic work that's been done in the control room and send that directly to the operator inside the cab? So from a task management perspective, we're talking about face utilization. We're talking about short interval control. Is the face in a selective mining application ready to drill, blast, be mucked out? Am I hauling? What is my task? And those tasks are established by the control room, sent directly to the operator. Once they're acknowledged, or if a delay is encountered, the control room knows real time, and they can understand what the effect of that delay is going to be on end of shift results.
And some of what the industry has cried out for, that we've been lucky enough to be able to solve, is rescheduling the shift within the shift. All too often you don't know how the shift has gone versus your plan versus actual, and reconciliation, were you over, were you under. A lot of the time you don't know that till many hours later. The next shift has already started and they've potentially inherited an erroneous shift based upon all the assumptions that are made, because it's taken so long to get all the information back into the system. And a lot of the stuff that Randy talks about sort of sits under the bonnet, if you like, of fleet management. That's what people tend to think of task management as, because it looks a bit like the surface side of things. But there is also a lot of lower hanging fruit in terms of simply driving inefficiency out of the underground mine that isn't necessarily task management, but talks about vehicles on decline, locating the piece of equipment. And further, if you take the topic of the shift turnaround, you can identify a whole pile of things where a technology solution, without having to think too hard about it, might reduce the creation of the schedule by 20 minutes, but the printing out of all the plot sheets and the 50 people in a room allocating tasks to 10 minutes.
Sure.
They go down to exactly where the piece of equipment is, because it's where it's supposed to be, and quite often it's not when you haven't got the ability to understand that. And their set of tasks are already there. It's all about getting people on the tools faster.
Yep. And sorry, Bill, just one thing I'd like to make clear. We say the equipment all the time, and I want to make sure, since this is Caterpillar talking, we're not only talking about putting this hardware and this enabling technology on CAT equipment. So this is essentially a layer that sits over top of the equipment. We can put this on a light vehicle, a drill, competitive LHD, our LHD trucks. It doesn't matter. So when we're talking the equipment, I just want to make sure everyone understands we're not only talking yellow equipment here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those were key themes, again, as we chatted with the customers that were out there. Interoperability was a huge theme, sure, right? As well as brand agnostics was another huge theme throughout this.
Yeah, and a lot of there's a couple of other propositions out there, but you almost have to sign up to the iron piece of it from the outset and dedicate yourself, and nobody really wants to do that. So a lot of the benefit is the OEM agnostic nature of this thing. There are significant advantages when you think about machine integration to having a Caterpillar piece of equipment, because it sort of gets back to the real-time information of what's important. If you can understand the fuel level of every single piece of equipment in the underground, you can fuel appropriately, not when something's 3/4 full. And that's not the time wasting of the maintenance guy truck going around, or the fuel truck. It's taking that machine out for 15 minutes to top it up.
Productivity loss.
You'd rather top it up when it's quarter full. Those sorts of things become very realistic and realizable, easy wins, if you like.
Yeah, I was going to mention, when you were talking about shift change, I know with the crowd, you gave very specific examples and how the differentiation of the real-time data and knowing specifically where everything's at throughout that mine versus maybe others, how that's a significant advantage that we're providing to the mine site, sure, right? And then you gave some examples about block caving. Maybe you could just chat a little bit about the block cave.
Yeah, correct. So, a lot of what we've talked about so far has application in any mine. But when it comes to block caves specifically, it's all about conformance to plan, right? And it's even more important in a block cave because it's essentially a rock factory and the cave is up above, and you've got to make sure you draw a certain recipe from the draw points to make sure that cave progresses correctly. And if that gets out of sequence, the cave could be lost, and it's a significant investment to recover that. So when we talk about assignment and the accuracy of positioning and underground, you know, when we have the ability to identify position within a meter, and some other systems on the marketplace are accurate to within 30 meters, you know, your draw points are 20 meters apart, you've got a left and a right, how do you know which one you're drawing from? So that's where a lot of the deeper machine integration and accuracy of our positioning, the value of that accurate positioning comes in. And also when we talk about congestion, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, our solution has been plugged into a set of traffic lights, for example, and it gave that particular client the double win, if you like, of an increased level of safety, so no truck interactions at all for a couple of years now, but also the ability to push more ore through that intersection because nobody's having to come to a full stop and get on the radio. We've got a light that's green, the one with the ore goes through, everybody else stops. It's relatively simple, but massively impactful.
Absolutely. So the flexibility of the system to be able to handle the precision of block caving as well as the flexibility of stoping, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And just being able to leverage it for both.
Yeah. So they're different. It's a dynamic environment. In stoping, it's more like a factory, as we said in the block cave. And I think the analogy on surface in terms of the assignment engine is of significance in that you can replicate what happens with a lot of the traditional fleet management systems in a block cave environment.
Yep.
Excellent. So I think in the time that we've been spending, hopefully everyone's clear about the enabling technology, some of the applications, how it can improve on the safety and or the productivity or both, right? How we're constantly evolving and developing new offerings through leveraging this technology. If I'm in the audience, I'm listening to this, how do I know that I'm a good fit to utilize this technology? What's your guys' thought?
So I think any mine is a perfect application for it. I mean, there's similar
for part of it at least.
For part of it, but I mean, it all depends on what their problem is they're trying to solve.
Sure.
Obviously, if you're not a block cave, you're not going to be able to take advantage of that cave integration piece. But everything we've talked to up to that point has application in any mine, and depending on where a customer is on their journey and what problem they're trying to solve, right? Because it's all about generating upfront value for the least incremental amount of technology. That's where I believe we get into those unique applications where the customer value is key and
there's people talk about it all the time. Every mine is different. Every mine is different, and every mine is at a different stage in the journey of either not adopting any technology or they've adopted a lot of technology. So we try to cater for that by leveraging existing infrastructure if it's already there. So it's key to point out here, I think, that the solution that we're deploying, the enabling technology, if you think of it simply as Wi-Fi with the ability to track things, it's an open channel of Wi-Fi. Our applications will only take a very small portion of that throughput. You can put anything else, any other applications across that open network that you want. So you don't have to wait for us to come out with application number 3 and 4 and 5. If you want to plug in applications that can benefit from understanding where something is and being able to understand that information in real time, we're all ears because we want to add more value to that capability, really.
Yeah, so for example, gas monitoring. If you've got a gas monitoring as a solution, we can piggyback that across that 2.4 network, no problem. It's open, it's agnostic, right? The tracking value resides on that 5.8 network, and that is a proprietary tracking algorithm that was developed by CSIRO, right?
Yeah, and people have probably forgotten by now, but the CSIRO were effectively the inventors of commercial Wi-Fi as we know it, and they've had a number of years ago developed a way to use ranging technology to determine position in an enclosed space. And what we've effectively done is taken that and solved what turns out to be probably underground mining's single biggest problem.
Sounds like a very unique solution here that we're bringing. So, Randy, if they want to take action, if they want to learn a little bit more, and maybe how do we assist them through the decision process here?
Yep. Well, I know there are several resources out there on the website that they can take advantage of, but obviously the dealer would be your first point of contact if you wanted some more information. But where we can really help you along the journey is, there's a lot of buzzwords flying around out there: automation, big data, technology, but a lot of customers are unclear where to start the journey, right? They're able to pinpoint where some of their biggest bottlenecks are and pain points, but if you're having trouble understanding how to start on this technology journey, because it is here to stay, right? Technology is how we're going to unlock the biggest inefficiencies within your mind to give you, double-digit, returns on your investment. In utilization and efficiency. So if someone's unclear on how to start that journey, reach out to us. We've got some application experts who can come in and work through a roadmap with you that will address change management, right? We don't want you to bite off more than can be effectively managed long term. And then help you unlock some of those additional features and benefits as you continue to grow with the product. So I think that would be an appropriate path to take.
And you reminded me of something else that we spent a lot of time chatting with the customers on, is what we're talking about is not theoretical, right? This is here. This is, and we believe is one of the key differentiating features that we bring is the experience, right? Because it's the technology combined with the people and the process that ultimately allows you to make the most strides, right? And so, interfacing and working with people who have been there, done that, right, can allow us to, really help the customers get the most out of their technology and their investment, get the best ROI back on that. So
and we're learning all the time, Bill. We're unlocking value, and we've developed applications that leverage that, that unlocking. But we love hearing how other clients, or like how clients of ours are. We had one client, for example, who they were somewhat embarrassed to admit that the lowest hanging fruit from our solution would be the ability to make the currently 90 minutes it takes them to locate equipment on average at the beginning of the shift disappear entirely. That would would look after itself pretty quickly. And the other piece that we found really interesting was they described the canvas view that we could give them on the entire shift as relatable to the theory of constraints. So you're able to, a bottleneck is relatively easy to identify. What's really difficult to do is, it's a bit like whatever that game is where the little head pops up.
Sure.
You can make it go away. Yeah, you can make it go away, but if you can't predict where else it'll never go away forever. But if you can determine where else it will appear down your value stream, you can smooth it out and minimize all of those bottlenecks and have a smooth throughput.
Sure. Fantastic. Now, I know we've spent a lot of time basically getting people, looking and talking about what's different with the MineStar for underground hard rock. If we could just spend a minute, I know we had also spent time talking about Command for Underground with the customers. Randy, maybe you can just give a little bit of an update on what we spoke to them about on there. And then also, is there anything with this partnership that maybe can help us with the Command for Underground solution?
Yeah, so our Command for Underground suite took a full product transformation as well. We're now going to have everything from line of sight remote control to teleremote, just operating on the surface via cameras, which brings on the safety layers, the barriers and things like that. The next will be guide assist, which allows you to operate the machine and steer it via the onboard LiDAR guidance. So we're able to operate in unmapped areas and areas of convergence, development headings, things like that haven't been mapped. And then we, at the high end of the product line, we have the full autonomy, which is the new 1700 when we integrate the auto dig capability into that. So that product portfolio is rolling out, and it will be available at the end of this year. I believe the December timeframe is when that will be commercially available. Now, when we talk about the integration of that technology with MineTech, it's the ability to use that tracking in a underground block cave environment to do auto assignment. Take that next draw point decision away from the operator to improve conformance. And it's all about, we're selling a single site solution, right?
Sure.
End to end. So we have to be able to utilize the new communications network to enable command technology. So we're in the process of validating that, and that should be coming out mid next year.
Yeah, and I think we're just at the beginning, to be perfectly honest, and a lot of where this will really add significant value is engagement of the dealer network as well, because there's a lot of the questions we used to get as a relatively small vendor were, how are you going to support it, who do we call? The single throat to choke, for want of a better term, in terms of support is vitally important. You don't want the miner to have to contact 4 people to work out, you know, which piece of my machine is broken, of the system is broken.
Right.
It's the single phone call and the single layer of support and the global backup of Caterpillar. That's what attracted Mindtech to a large degree into the whole relationship.
Yeah. Well, and that relates back to some of the conversations we had again during our event. We're again looking at that formula of technology plus people plus process. Sure. Really look at our partnerships at kind of being that exponential factor to allow us to bring the velocity for the expansion of our offerings to both surface and underground. Sure. And of course the dealers, huge key to that overall offering, because the customers know that both Caterpillar and the dealers, we've been there, we will continue to be there as we work through and help provide the greatest outcomes that we can for each of the applications.
Yep, and just to tell you, Bill, I mean the dealers I've talked to, they're very excited that we now have this new portfolio in the underground space, because it essentially opens up an entire new industry to them from a technology perspective.
Absolutely.
Right? Before we had an automation layer we could put on a yellow machine, but other than that it was iron sales in the underground space. Sure. So now this really allows them to help justify and further leverage their service and support team that they have in place for surface technology, now be able to deploy that and leverage it in underground as well is a huge leap for them.
There's a term that we use a lot, which is 1 + 1 = 3, and we look for those all the time, and I think Mindtech Caterpillar is a 1 + 1 = 3. Our collective and the dealer is another one of those, and just the tracking and comms bit. There's lots of examples of putting the two together and getting a greater outcome.
Sure. Well, I tell you, if the group's reaction to your guys' presentation and discussion is any indication, I think there's a lot of excitement to come. I think the partnerships, there's going to be a lot of great future in there. And again, I would like to encourage the audience that's listening today, if you'd like to learn more, if you'd like to about this series of offerings in your application, to please reach out to us either through the dealer, or if you go ahead and send us an email, we'll make sure we circle back through the dealer to get the information to you. But with that, gentlemen, I'd like to just take this opportunity and thank you both. Alan, for coming all the way over and helping us with the customers for the last week.
That's been great.
Randy, as always, working with you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
And again, we thank everyone for their time and attention, and look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Have a great day. Be safe.